All right, hit that like. I think we're about ready to go live on Substack and on Instagram. We'll see if those work out like they're supposed to. Yep, there we go. There's Instagram should be live right now. And Substack should be, there we go. Copy that. Put that in there. Excellent. Hey Substack, restack the show if you would. And give some hearts and stuff in there. I think that helps somehow, I would guess. And then I think, you can share both to your notes. You can share it to Facebook. You can share it to LinkedIn. You can share it on Shitter. Don't do that. You can also copy the link. You can any vertical format channel you want. There's a little thing next to the comment window. Also on Instagram, there's a little send the paper airplane right in the comment section. You can share that with a friend, especially one that's particularly annoyed by the truth about Donald Trump. Should be good. You can't go wrong. You can't. Now, be up in just 1 second. I have to bring up that. Let's start the show up. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Good morning. It's Hal Sparks Mornings, Megaworldwide. Thank you. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show, etc., etc., etc. Patreon.com/Hal Sparks. Great way to support the show. There's also an occasional Venmo thing that pops up, and you can use that to buy me a cup of coffee on the regular, if you so choose. If you can't, or whatever, or you're worried about your financial future, don't even go anywhere near supporting the show if you can't. Just don't even worry about it. Just thank the people who do and can and move on, because the whole point of this show is to alleviate some of the stress on top of you. And I have got a doozy today. Now, the second hour, of course, Philip Bitner will be joining us, and Phil is, he doesn't want us to worry about him as much as we do, but it's kind of impossible. So he's doing good. He will be with us, but I have no doubt that there will be Ukraine drama to beat the band when we talk about this stuff. check, check. 1, check, 2. Huh. There's one there. Check, check, check. Check, check, check. Oh, I see. Check. Hey, there we go. All right, I think that's working. Hey, fixed it. Look at that. Look at me fixing shit. All right, we're gonna turn that music away and go here and all right, that was fun. But I will say, both I was able to fix the camera and the mic without having to go offline, and and the whole music stuff was working. So that's good. So high five for myself on that one. I'm very impressed this morning that I was able, and look how calm I am. I'd just like to get points for that. Not sure what that loop situation was. Totally didn't make any sense whatsoever. There was no material reason for it. So clearly I'm being attacked by the deep state. If you want me to stay on the air, you have to help. So like, subscribe, and share. Whatever. Okay, so now back to where were we? Okay, the Epstein story. The story that the gift that keeps on, the grift that keeps on giving. And I had to shut a window. Damn it. So good. This is so good. I gotta hold on. Let's see. Jeffrey Epstein. This is how good this gets. You're gonna enjoy this. Jeffrey Epstein, Unabomber. Okay. So remember the story. Remember the story, if I may, about the check out the earbuds. We hear you on all the so. Oh, good. We were hearing everything. Audio is borked, looping. Okay, it's good. Excellent. Okay. I'm always a minute behind in that. Okay. The Unabomber story. Okay. So, no, Ojeda is on the campaign trail, so he will not be with us this morning. He'll come back next week if he's available. And the dude is running for office, so he's a busy dude. And then Phil will be with us second hour. So, remember the... work with me on this. Donald Trump tells everybody that his Uncle John not only taught the Unabomber, but they had a conversation with it over a decade after his Uncle John died. That's right. So to actually talk to his uncle about Ted Kaczynski as the Unabomber, I owe you guys an apology, because there is one other possibility that I did not factor into this. One other way that the facts could go that didn't occur to me at the time. Because I had always gone with his brain is turning to potato salad. Trump's brain is turning to potato salad. And he mixed up a story, and he's just nuts. And this is a bullshit story he used to tell people, and now he's still telling it, even though it's materially false. And so that's the obvious. That's the Occam's rubber mallet in this particular situation. The other possibility I did not really think about until now is that not only was Donald Trump friends with Jeffrey Epstein, he was also friends with the Unabomber, and knew that Ted Kaczynski was the Unabomber years before it was discovered, and kept those details from the authorities so that he could continue to not pay for his crimes. And so there is a possibility, and I'm sorry I didn't see this right away, that he did have a conversation with his Uncle John about the Unabomber being Ted Kaczynski. And it was when his Uncle John and him were part of a small group of people who knew Ted Kaczynski was the Unabomber and did nothing about it. So that's another possibility that I would like to lay out there. Okay. Now, that one occurred. That one occurred to me. Because you got to think of everything, and in thinking of everything, you're like, well, sometimes the whole you couldn't write this. Well, you can write anything, just you wouldn't. It's stupid. Like, it's so ridiculous. Like, you'd start writing it down and you go, what the fuck am I thinking? Like, it's not that you couldn't make it up. It's that you're like, nobody would buy this. Nobody. All right. So, the question is, how could it get worse? How could it get worse? Right. How could it get worse? Well, it's not that he's misremembering a conversation with his Uncle John. It's that this is a story he heard from Jeffrey Epstein. So apparently, Jeffrey Epstein, there was a guy named Stuart Pivar. I'm going to go with Pivar, who was a friend of Epstein's, who reportedly said a long time ago that Epstein claimed to have studied math at UCLA with the Unabomber, who was a math teacher there. However, reports indicate this claim is inaccurate, as Epstein did not attend UCLA and Kaczynski did not teach there. So it was an apocryphal story. It was bullshit, but it was Epstein's bullshit. Yes, we'll get to the photos. So not only did he misremember a story, yeah, the other thing is they faked Ted Kaczynski's death. Oh yeah, they're probably sharing an island right now. The other thing is, and this is partly where the story comes from, is that there was a guy named Charles Epstein. Let's see. Yeah, the son of Unabomber victim Charles Epstein stated he hoped his father would not be remembered as a Unabomber victim, but instead by his contribution to science. So Charles Epstein, one of the victims' name was Epstein, and so Epstein may have just like saw his name and the story around it, knew people wouldn't dig very far, borrowed on that, right? Anyways. I love, ladies and gentlemen, this is my new favorite fact, that Donald Trump didn't just misremember an insane, nonsensical, bullshit, apocryphal, Back to the Future 4, The Reckoning, just garbage story about his uncle teaching the Unabomber, who he would not have known was the Unabomber, talking about him as the Unabomber a decade after he died. It wasn't just that bad. It wasn't just, oh my God, the man's brain is tapioca. It's that he borrowed that story from Jeffrey Epstein. He had heard that story, or a story about the Unabomber. The conversation he had about the Unabomber correcting everybody sounds like Epstein talking about the Unabomber. Epstein says he was a student of Ted Kaczynski. And so the idea that he would correct people, right, that all comes from being a student of him. That's a story that Epstein told Donald Trump. And he can't not, this is so glorious. It just gets so much better. Now, there is a story in, I believe, the New York Times that is posting this, that has a bunch of new photos of Epstein. One which is particularly fucking creepy. It's a shot that Howard Stern is in, and Robin Leach and a couple other people. And whoops, of course, everything's sideways. Why wouldn't it be? All right, I'll fix this. Hold on one second. I can fix this. I know I can do it. Let's go back to this thing, to the screen capture. And we're good. Let's see. And we'll open up this thing. And we'll go, why are you messing around? What's the deal? Is this one? Nope. Looking good. Looking real good, mister. Nope. There's our Discord, by the way, if you want to join. Why would this guy be not shuffling? Oh, I gotta love the display. I like when everything takes a giant brain fart, don't you? Oh, maybe it's this guy? Maybe it doubles itself? Nope, that's not it. It's back to there. So it's got to be this one. Nope, it's got to be this one. Hey, there it is. I fixed it. Look at that. Some days you just got to restart before the show starts. Lesson learned. Whew. So this picture is particularly Overlook Hotel. Blech. And that's Robin Leach, and I don't know, beg your pardon, the lady's name, but she's standing next to Howard Stern in this photograph. And Epstein is, it seems, intentionally photobombing everybody at this thing. This is, and by the way, this is at Trump's wedding to Marla Maples. And keep in mind, Trump and specifically Ghislaine Maxwell, introduced Trump to Melania. So they just, I guess, like they were on wife duty. They were providing him with significant others, as it were. Marla Maples has gone, I think, total anti-vaxxer at this point. But yeah, Epstein was at Trump's wedding to Marla Maples. Now, we have seen, let me show you this picture, because fuck, this is so gross, and I apologize ahead of time. So I think the other, Ingrid Senchaiv, you've seen this one before. I think this is the girl that's in the other picture, I may be wrong. But this is later. This is at the Victoria's Secret Angels Party. Les Wexner's company, who also owned Abercrombie and Finch, and he was basically running a sex trafficking of females through the modeling agency associated with Victoria's Secret at the time, and Abercrombie and Fitch, he was running the boys, the young male models that they would do the same thing to. So that's, again, there's this thing about Epstein photobombing Trump in a bunch of these things on purpose and kind of laughing about it. And there was this documentary I watched about him smirking all the time, and this idea that he did that as almost it was like a tool to let you know that he had something on you. So you would make people nervous, right? Is that he would smirk about this. Now, one of the other pictures, let's see if I can find this, is the one of him and Ivanka and let's see, we've seen this before, but you know the one of him and I think it's Eric and Ivanka, and Epstein is right there, and Trump is holding both of his kids, and it's a black and white photo, and like CNN has had it. Hold on. I'll bring that one up so we can compare it, because there's something about it that is particularly awful now. Images burnt. Yeah, okay. So this one, let's see if we show it. Quit. I just want to see the, I don't want to see the, I want to see the images. I don't want to see the, ugh. See if it's in here. Yeah, okay. So I'll open this image in a new tab and expand on it. So I want to show you something real quick. So we've seen this one before. This one that's Ivanka right there, and I guess that's Eric is the idea, or some unknown boy. I'm gonna guess it's Eric though. Trump with his kids and Epstein. She's 12. Trump says on Howard Stern 12 is his floor. Katie, the girl who accused him of, and that's not a real name, but whatever. The girl who, officially a Jane Doe, who accused him of sexually assaulting her when she was 13 years old. She was obviously, because she was 13, over the age of 12. And that was his floor, according to him on Howard Stern. Remember this picture though? Okay, this is at a Harley Davidson restaurant opening, which is apocryphal. Listen to me. It's an abomination. It's horrible. Just going to one of those fucking things is stupid, especially if you ride a motorcycle. It's fucking embarrassing. I stick with Carlin on this one. Well, when it came to where are they? These things. So here's the other picture from that event. That's Ivanka, and they're on leaning against this motorcycle, and look where his hands are, and look what she's wearing. She's wearing a denim mini skirt. She's fucking 12. And he's holding her up on his lap on the motorcycle while pose kissing her with this it's just so gross. It's so gross. And that's the same press event that he was there with Epstein. That's the one where that black and white picture of Trump and Epstein and Eric. By the way, Eric's not in the fucking shot. Did you notice that? Do you notice the fact that apparently Eric is at this thing? Both of his kids are there, but he's doing this weird fucking, like, I don't know, like, you know those games with the claw that picks up toys? That's what this reeks of. Like, he's got this claw grip around her waist. And where's Eric? Honestly. Because I got news for you. There's pictures of me and my kid at a bunch of these kind of things. I don't publicize them because they're for our memories in general, and it's it's better to kind of keep your kid out of the public eye until either they choose to be in the public eye or they age out where they're 18 and that's life. But at this point, he's choosing to pose with her like this, and he's got another kid there, both of his children. All right. Like, it's just awful. It's so much awful. The fact that his eyes are looking at the camera like, look at me. I know. All of it. The claw. It's not okay. Look at her face. Yeah. Where's Junior? I don't think Junior was there. I think he was younger, right? Or no, he's older, right? So maybe he just didn't want to go. Maybe he was old enough to not have to go. But the two blonde, maybe he wanted to only take the blondes. Maybe Don was there, but Trump was that period, one of the many periods where he was embarrassed by him and he didn't want him anywhere on camera. I mean, he basically didn't want Eric there either. He only wanted Ivanka there. He was at boarding school. That's possible. Whew. God damn. That is so creepy. And again, this is, we know that he's at this party. We've seen this picture a bunch of times. That's when she's Melania Knaus. This is before, I guess, when he's still married to Marla Maples. And yeah, let's see. And then this was, let's see, are they playing this part of it? Hold on. Da-da-da. Pause this. Skip ad.
Thing about being Donald Trump right now.
Well, other than the fact I'm married, okay,
right,
and I'm very happily married. I have a great wife. But if I weren't married, I'd be able to get all of the girls I want, except for possibly Robin.
Do you think you could now be banging 24-year-olds?
Oh, absolutely. I have no trouble.
Would you do it?
I have no problem.
Yeah, do you have an age limit, or would you...
No, I have no age. I mean, I have an age... I don't want to be
the
like...
upper bracket, yeah.
Foley with, 12-year-olds.
Can I make a prediction for you?
Yes.
I say you have one more marriage in you.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. I'm sure Melania will love to hear that.
No, nothing, no knocking.
Yeah, so I don't want to be like Congressman Foley with 12-year-olds. 13's fine, I guess. And again, that's how old... Ivanka was at the time. Like, dude, how do maggots do this? Can anybody explain? Like, it's just going to get worse. And I feel like the 6 weeks that they've taken off from that, in the House and Senate is just going to make this shit wind up even worse, right? Like, this is not going to get better. They like popping virgin cherries because, apparently Trump liked them, quote, untouched, but that didn't seem to be the case later on, like with Stormy Daniels or something like that. I think he just took whatever he was attracted to, and it was his at that moment, and so property's property, right? Oh, hi, you're in Frosty Auckland. Frosty Auckland sounds like a drink. 2 Frosty Aucklands. Makes them all accomplices, obstruction of justice. I agree. Ivanka got out at the right time, so it seems. I mean, there's a reason why she's staying away, and we haven't heard peep out of her, especially around this issue. I got to tell you, we have seen fucking serial killers who have gotten caught, bodies in the backyard, and like cadaver dogs all over the property on the house that people grew up in, and their kids are like, I don't believe it. I know he did these things, but he's still my dad. how many people, chat room, how many of you guys have seen a show like that? Seen at least one, if not a dozen, of those kind of stories? Right? Where the serial killer's family, their mom, like, there's a lot of shooters' families that are like that, where they're like, even though that person has done some heinous shit, mass murder, or, sexual assault and strangulation and burying bodies and dismembering them and really horrible shit, and those people still come out and go, well, I can't reconcile what he did with who I knew, and he's still my dad and I love him, or that was still my mom even though she drowned all my siblings. If I'd have been home, she'd have killed me too, right? And yet, Ivanka's nowhere to be seen? Right? Kind of hinky? Yes? Okay. So, I think my favorite breakout is that Donald Trump didn't have a conversation with the ghost of his uncle John Trump. He was talking about a story that Epstein told him, which makes this even better. And so, reporters, those of you that watch my show, and I know you're there, please, for the love of God, bring up to Caroline Levitt or Stephen Chung or any of these assholes that John Trump died a decade before anybody even knew who the Unabomber was, and it was Jeffrey Epstein who used to talk about knowing the Unabomber. So could Donald Trump be mixing up a story that Jeffrey Epstein told him, because he obviously did not have this conversation with his dead uncle? Please, someone, and you can shorten it as best you can, you're professionals, tighten that shit up, although I think it's pretty tight, and please drop that bag of shit on his doorstep and light it on fire. Because, yeah. Yeah, Obama hung with Dahmer all the time. Yeah, it was... Dahmer was born in Kenya too, apparently. You can tell by his skin tone. So, hey, this is just glorious. I'm just saying, like, this is not going away. And they're going to try and, shovel it under some stuff. The live message, as we have seen on the clips that I covered yesterday, I didn't cover any because of the death of Ozzy. But they've all gotten the talking points. From Mark Levin to Glenn Beck to whoever, they've all gotten the talking points. And the talking points is 6 months of wins. That's the talking point now. And you're going to see it everywhere, from Sean Hannity and Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfeld. They're all going to line up like fucking pelicans to be fed to have this news story barfed into their mouth, and so they can regurgitate it themselves onto their viewers. This is how they think they're going to spackle over this. 6 months of wins. Except it isn't, and they aren't. And this, isn't going away. Here's another, I'll show you. This is, they're getting the talking points. Let me see if they can know this. Yeah. Let's see, go to here. I think. The House Minority Whip from Minnesota, I don't know, lock in, says Epstein is a non-issue. Nope. As a matter of fact, our bizarre ecologist friend Thomas Massey from the great state of Kentucky, that gave you Johnny Depp, Muhammad Ali, George Clooney, me. Yeah. Apparently there's something in the water. He's got, it looks like he's got 218 votes for his discharge petition. All the Democrats are going to sign off on it, and they have enough Republicans. So the bill that he entered couldn't mature in the time because they literally held it, and they didn't know. They're leaving town today because if they stay till Friday, they would have to vote on this on the floor, and they don't want to. They're hoping in 6 weeks, when they come back in September, this will be over. It won't be. It will not be. It'll just give MAGA like a month and a half to review the 10 hours of bullshit footage, to grind on the metadata, to deal with the fact that more stories will come out with Trump, hanging with him. More people are digging through their shit. Like the pictures that you're seeing, by the way, the ones they're like, these are never before seen pictures. The guy who, let's see if I can bring this up. Where are we? Yeah, we'll go back to this guy. Yeah. So these never before seen pictures. By the way, don't let Andrew Kaczynski's name fool you in this thing. No relation. This is Epstein entering Trump's wedding to Marla Maples. And by the way, where's that footage? See that guy right there? See that dude with that camera? Was that footage digitized? Did that go to your holding thing? I mean, it's obviously big news. These were famous people. If something happens or one of them kicks off, you're going to want the footage. So, hey, I think it's time. Access Hollywood, Lost Styles of the Rich and Famous, Page 6, whoever. Start rifling through your fucking files, kids. And it would be a good time to take all your the logs of footage that you have and feed them into something like ChatGPT and let it come up with it. You need 1,000 FBI agents to flag where Trump is in this stuff. You don't need that at all for news footage. Just feed your log files into it and it'll go, oh yeah, here's the dates, here's the exact time, here's the fucking frames. So these things, though, were found because they were on the contact sheet because they threw out the negatives, which is weird to me. Like the contact sheets take up more space than the negatives do, but whatever. The guy who took these pictures that they're talking about, that they show in these situations like these, he was looking through his contact sheets from these events that he knew Epstein was at, and that's where he discovered all these things. Like he was walking around, he was basically going over a contact sheet with a loop and found these. And considering that Epstein is photobombing him in the background, what I'm saying is there are a bunch of people right now who are doing the exact same thing. Yeah. And I gotta say, Trump is desperately trying to shelve this, and it ain't gonna work, kids. It's not gonna work. And partly because the rest of the shit he's doing, I'll show you one of the reasons why. Let's see. Want to know one of the other reasons why you're not going to see Donald Trump be able to avoid talking about Epstein? Here's why. I mean, there's a myriad of reasons, but this is a big one. Yeah. How low can the dollar go? The U.S. dollar has suffered its worst first half since 1973, and its decline may not be over. You cannot fix monetary inflation by making the dollar, buy less. I mean, they're also, again, they are still trying to, and I have my problems with Powell and this group because of how they're describing our problem and how Republicans are basically fueling that fire by saying that we have monetary inflation. We do not have monetary inflation. We don't. We don't have too much money in circulation in the United States. Because we've become the de facto currency for 3 other countries in the last 4 years, Argentina, Turkey, and one other I'm blitzing on right now, that the money in circulation doesn't just go to our market and just puff up the prices here. It goes over there. It ends up, being, and it's the reserve currency. So it's used everywhere in the fucking world. So the idea that there's just too much money circulating in the United States because of something is horseshit. We have supply shock. We are moving stuff out of China because of slavery and because of national security and because of COVID and because of distrust. And they are moving some of those factories to other places, which take time and money, or they're moving them to the United States, which take time and a lot more money. But there is This has nothing to do with monetary inflation. The fluctuation of the interest rate isn't going to have any impact on this shit at all. None. The only area it does is where people feel comfortable if they're in business and they want to expand, they want to borrow money to do it, and the cost of the expansion and how much the money costs to do that is, as long as it's lower than your potential profit from the expansion, you're good. But when it's high, that's iffy. If you don't meet this, whatever 4 or 5%. Increase in a certain amount of time, and you got to start paying that off. It looks bad on the books, so nobody wants to do that. So they jockey around in this area. But there is not too much money in fucking circulation. There just isn't. And the reason that the dollar is going down is not because Trump decided money printer go burr, even though they are adding to the debt, right? And that's maybe some people getting out of it. The main reason I would argue is that other countries are, shedding dollars because of sanctions problems and all kinds of other stuff that they're just trying to get out of it and use something else, like crypto, for example. And as crypto makes a climb, it's going to chip into the dollar. And that's what Trump's helping to do right now. If you want to look for a one-to-one balance against what's actually happening materially to the dollar right now, beyond, just we're still coming out of COVID and that's still a thing. After we were still coming out of 2008 and that's a thing. After we were still coming out of 9/11 and that's a thing. And the Iraq war and the Afghanistan war, which was, depending on who you ask, $6 to $11 trillion worth of expenditure over those years. Not just us, but other countries. If you include, what France and the UK spent on that endeavor, that's, just money being thrown, just setting it on fire, essentially. So this is why, though, Epstein is still going to be in the news, because as bad as Epstein is, it beats talking about this for Republicans. That's one of the other reasons. So they're buying gold globally. Yeah, you're seeing a bunch of that too. But again, that's not going to have as much of an impact as people think. But this is Donald Trump's dollar right here. That's Donald Trump's dollar. That fucking sucks. That sucks. And people are going to be up Trump's ass about that, along with, because nobody knows where the bottom is, especially if you're swapping out crypto, because that's what they want to do. Let's be honest. Crypto is the currency of choice for gun runners, human traffickers, and drug traffickers. That's what it's for. You can't use it at a grocery store. You can't buy this everywhere. It's too fucking complicated. But you can do giant, payments under the radar. That's what it's for. It's for dark web payments. It's for paying for a dude to clean up the dead hooker in your hotel room. That's what it's for. That's why they like it. That's why Trump wants it. It basically allows for it's wide open for bribery because of its that it's largely untraceable. Because people can have their real crypto wallet, and then they can have their smoke crypto wallet, and they can transfer shit from their regular wallet to their smoke crypto wallet, which is assigned to nobody's name, and then they can pay people through that, but it just doesn't say anything. And then you get paid from that, and it doesn't track it back to the last person that bought it because it's not like a physical good. So yeah, this is for paying for crime. This is the currency of criminals, right? And Trump in general is going. Yeah, here you go. There's the U.S. dollar to the euro. Euro's doing fine. The U.S. dollar is 85 cents to a euro now. That's not good. Do you think Trump and MAGA, especially when their consideration is the debt and all this stuff, would rather be talking about that? Now, I know Trump would, because I've said before, and I will say again, no matter what damage is done to MAGA by Trump denying and bullshitting his way through all of these, I'm not in the files. I never knew him. There's a Democrat hoax, all that stuff. The 10-hour video, which is clearly edited, the 3 minutes missing, the fact that it doesn't even show the stairs going to his fucking cell block, much less his door. And of course, anybody with half a brain could climb up there and kill the dude, especially while the guards were asleep or on QVC. So it just reeks. And all it's going to do is like, it's like saying, 6 weeks, this will all die down. It's like saying, it's been, whatever, 60 years since the Kennedy assassination, or 70 years since the Kennedy assassination. Nobody cares about it anymore. MLK, all that kind of stuff. Jesus Christ. I saw a story. You guys know this drives me nuts because I'm a big humans are humans. Nobody gets out of this, without their people doing some awful. And I want to say it was like was it the New Yorker? Yeah. Yeah, okay. So the New Yorker does a story, and I'm, it's a good story. I'm sure it's interesting. When an American town massacred its Chinese immigrants. Now, for the record, it's not the only time there was riots, anti-Chinese riots and violence where a bunch of Chinese people got killed. It's not the one time. This was in Rock Springs, Wyoming, that this story happens. And maybe they think 'cause it was a town because it's more of a story because the whole place is small and it's a dead town now for the most part anyways. And it was about coal mining. And basically, the story talks about the fact that the coal mining company was bringing in Chinese scabs and that they were paying people by the bushel, and they would assign the cheaper workers to the better veins of coal. And a couple of times, like, guys would, be working, they'd go home sick, they'd come back the next day, and there'd be Chinese workers where, they had basically contracted for this vein of coal, that this is my room to work, and I'm getting my bushels from here, and if I'm sent to another area that's just fucking limestone, I'm fucked. And so there would be fistfights in the mines and shit like that because it was 1880 fucking 5. Oh, awesome! Thank you, Andrea. So the story is an important part of American history. It's a terrible event. It's not particularly unique, except for the fact that I think the volume of people killed there was in totality, it was a per capita situation where the town was smaller when it all happened there. It made a bigger deal than when it happened. There was a massacre in Los Angeles. There was also one in San Francisco. And a lot of it had to do with the benevolent societies, Chinese benevolent societies that were bringing over workers and intentionally undermining labor in these areas. They were coordinating them. You could pay their workers cheaper because they would spread around some of the stuff. They would, yes, they slept in hovels, but everybody did. And so they were undermining the labor at the time. And it was a coordinated effort. It wasn't just immigrants going, this is my shot, and coming over on their own. This was the Chinese in particular bringing over people, almost importing slave labor in this regard, right? And this happened to, they made deals with the railroad companies. They made deals with the coal mining companies. And these people would basically work in indentured servitude. But because they would build a little Chinatown for them and they would live there and get their groceries there and that kind of stuff, have their own kind of company store, they could live, even as everybody's living in squalor, they could live a little bit better than the white workers, and it caused these dust-ups. Not excusing the behavior, but saying it's a lot more gray than the New Yorker would mention. And in this particular story, let's see if I can find this. They have this archaeologist who comes there, and it's a great story about them. They have 2 weeks for this excavation, and they ran out of time. They didn't have much, the yeah but on this is very telling. Violence usually has a proximate cause that is straightforward to identify. An insult, a taunt, a source of agreement. More challenging is tracing larger patterns. For historians, violence is a difficult subject. It is committed by isolated individuals, by small groups, and by large mobs. It is directed against individuals and crowds alike. It is undertaken for a variety of purposes, and at times for no discernible purpose at all. It's a great story. This is very Ken Burns. Okay, that's totally cool. And there were, yes, horrific episodes of racial violence erupted at minefields. California's highest court ruled that the Chinese testimony against white people was inadmissible because they were still Chinese nationals. That's what they don't say in this, but whatever. Politicians, sensing an opportunity, began to call for removal of Chinese residents. That's what led to this dial-up. And again, if you don't deal with these issues as they show up, they build and build and build and explode. And this is how you get terrible things happening, is if you go, I don't want to touch that. You have to. Politicians have to be brave and deal with issues as they are and take the heat for them. That's what being a representative of the people means, all of the people. And so if there's ugliness that's coming, you got to stand in the middle of it. That's your fucking job. And if you don't, eventually it boils over, right? And one of the things that they don't mention until way later in this is that there was a fight that started in the LA uprising. They talk about this riot. I won't even call it an uprising. This riot where some people killed a bunch of Chinese immigrants. It started because there was a Chinese gang, an actual gang, a material gang. They enforced whatever code they had on the immigrant workers themselves, and they killed a white worker. They could kill their own because they protected themselves from going to jail for it. They would run interference. They would get rid of their own bodies and that kind of stuff. They were Chinese and they felt like they owned them. So they would kill their own and it was fine. But once they stepped over a line, they killed them. And there was also, it wasn't just white people, it was angry black workers who had just been freed from slavery, 15, 20 years before, or a week, if they came from Texas. And those people were as angry about their wages being undercut as possible. Okay. Great story, though, and important to know the depth of history. Yes, we agree on this. And by the way, Philip Bitner will be with us in 5 minutes. Here's why it matters. Let's see. There was, here you go. Trying to find these. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. Well, here's one. Hold on. There have been, by my count, anyways, somewhere between 7 and 12, like, riots of similar tone to in that story in Africa and in Vietnam and in other countries where the Chinese have moved in towards Chinese workers that have been brought there by their government in the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, like similar death toll as the one in that story that the New Yorker did, which again, great piece of journalism, interesting life story about the archaeologist going there and finding, totally cool, right? I appreciate them doing that story. But to not mention in that story that there are similar uprisings because of the Belt and Road Initiative, for example, happening right now is kind of fucked up. And the problem with those stories is it gives this idea that America, again, uniquely racist in its own way, amongst other countries. If you read this, when an American town massacred its Chinese immigrants. On the one hand, it's good that we know it. And it's a sign of our awareness of our wrongs that we continue to learn about these things. That's a positive. But if you don't give the context, like when telling a story about, the transatlantic slave trade, for example, without mentioning that the Arab slave trade went on at the same time, or that only about 6% of the slaves taken across the Atlantic Ocean to the Americas went to North America, and even then, only to half of the country. And then we fought a war over it, whereas in South America and Central America, they were enslaved for decades afterwards, or that again, I've mentioned this before, that the Cherokee were allowed to keep their black slaves after the Civil War for almost 10 years, that there were black slaves that died on the Trail of Tears carrying the goods of the Cherokee that owned them, those kind of things. This is all history. It's all important. And I think what can be taken from it, I would hope, is that we all agree now, slavery bad, and never again. Genocide bad, and never again. Right? This is how we do it. But you don't do it by saying it's unique to one people or unique to one country. It's important that we look into our stuff. I totally think that we should. But without a worldwide context, what's happened is a lot of people talk about this shit as if there are slaves fighting in Ukraine on behalf of Russia right now. And I don't mean, men forced into the army because they're Russian. I mean immigrants who are working in factories and in homes who have been handed a rifle or a piece of wood cut out to look like one and shoved into a meat wave, who are not even citizens of Russia. That's not forced labor. That's not indentured servitude. That's slavery. And it's happening right now. We are becoming, no, Steve, please. We are becoming wage slaves is such a terrible, like, just even using the word slave for yourself, if you have the option of at all, I mean, literally at all, like leaving and going and living in a homeless shelter. Slaves can't do that. The word slave has to have meaning. Geronimo said, hell no. Geronimo said famously, and by the way, the Spanish soldiers he and his people killed were yelling for Saint Jerome, and his own people thought his name was, that was their name for him, was Geronimo. That's how Geronimo got his name. Geronimo said, if they asked him, like, he was fairly comfortable in captivity at the end of his life, according to him. But they said, what would you do if we let you out? Right? What would you do if they let you out? Right? And he said, I would kill Mexicans. That's what Geronimo said. It has meaning to us. Yeah, and I dismiss that. I find that morally reprehensible and dismissive of people who experience actual slavery. I just don't buy into it. I'm not going to. That ship has sailed. I'm not going to let anybody sell that business. And our dear friend Philip Bitner is joining us. Let me bring him in just 1 second. But no, that has to mean something. Wage slavery is not a thing. No. Come up with a new word, but that's not a thing. It just isn't. And it's dismissive of people who are enslaved today. And I think only people who think of like slavery as something from uniquely America's past and is gone in the world that would use that flippantly. There's nuance to it. No, there isn't. No. Enslavement, like taking that mantle on and claiming that for yourself when you have any options, considering what slaves went through. Yeah, the working poor, that's what we should be talking about. How do we help the working poor? Completely makes sense. Right? Those are things we have to talk about. I'm going to bring in Phil, and we'll get to the story of the day. But welcome, Phil. How are you? It's a conversation we'll have later on. Really appreciate you guys. So Phil, a couple things off the top. I shared this at the beginning of the show, but for technical difficulties, it wasn't as smooth as I would have liked. But apparently, we have found out that, well, not apparently, it's true, that Donald Trump's story about Ted Kaczynski being a student of his Uncle John's and that they had a conversation about it at least 11 years after his Uncle John died. I don't know if you know this bit.
Right. Yeah, no.
That's actually a story he heard from from Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein used to claim that he studied at UCLA under Ted Kaczynski, who, by the way, didn't teach at UCLA, whatever. But Epstein made it up. And that's a story that Trump heard from him. His brain is tapioca. His brain is turning to gelatin. And it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. But I feel like there's a lot of machinations behind the scenes by the next wave of what MAGA will mean, what they're going to do without him. There's a big story I want to say it was Axios this morning about how like they're trying to, behind the scenes, Republicans are trying to figure out what MAGA without Trump looks like. Now they've been talking about that for a while, but now they really mean it because his brain is tapioca. And in this particular instance, it seems to involve more support for Ukraine and less support for Russia. That the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world are getting even more marginalized in the process. Now, the one thing, I'd love to talk to you about that, but I would also like to talk to you about these apparent, protests in Kyiv or whatever about Zelensky that they've been talking about. They are playing this up like crazy. I mean, they reek of the stuff around Hillary Clinton here, but I'm curious as to your experience. Have you seen them? What's going on with those?
No, I didn't attend them last night. But yeah, they were the biggest protests that we've seen certainly since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, the war. But I would argue even as far back as Maidan, a lot of people are pissed off at the government right now. It centers on what has happened is that Zelensky and his party just rammed through a new law that puts two different anti-corruption units under the jurisdiction of the general prosecutor. So it's a consolidation of power in an anti-corruption capacity, which has a history in Ukraine of being abused.
Sure.
I mean, we think back to, of course, the whole thing about Biden, telling them to sack the general prosecutor because he was corrupt.
Right.
I mean, that's a lot of power, and it can be easily abused. And so when we saw this get rammed through by the power of the People Party, which is Zelensky's Voice of the People Party, which is Zelensky's party, kind of proposed this. It was supported by a couple of other smaller parties within the Rada, including a party that is reputed to kind of have sympathetic ties to Moscow. So everybody was even more angered by that. And I got on all these different Ukrainian streaming podcasts, and they were furious. Why are our boys dying? Why are our boys dying at the front if we're just going to revert back to a Moscow style, government and this kind of kleptocracy and corruption that we had, that was overcome during Maidan. Now, it gets more complicated, obviously, because it's Ukraine. Everything's complicated here. I have also heard from one of these anti-corruption units, or a subsidiary of one of these anti-corruption units, that she feels that this is happening because USAID has left and there are no longer any watchdogs. Used to be that Americans could go to Zelensky or go to, more importantly, those in the power structure in Kiev, Yanukovych, or I'm talking really more about his what's the word I'm looking for? His not council, not chamber, his cabinet.
Right.
There's a couple of really kind of sus. They're kind of the old school Ukrainian politician that surrounds Zelensky that kind of propelled him to power and maintains his power.
Mm-hmm.
And the Americans, when USAID was here, because there's always anti-corruption efforts and kind of reform and democracy and rule of law pushed by USAID, that they could go into these guys' offices and say, hey, we see what you're doing.
Right.
You might not get as much money, if you keep doing this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's gone. So I just had an interview for this week's edition of the show of On the Edge with a guy who was on the protest. He's a fellow journalist. He writes for The Guardian, the name of Luke Hardy. And I've known Luke for a very, very long time. We've kind of orbited one another in the kind of Moscow press corps. And he actually went there. I couldn't go. I was doing other things.
Mm-hmm.
He actually went to the square and he said, Phil, you and I both lived in Moscow. And you and I both know that if, a large number of young people took to the streets in protest of something that had happened and stood outside the Kremlin window and screamed at Vladimir Putin on Red Square, how long do you think they would last before a van would screech up, a bunch of guys in riot gear would pile out, and they'd start cracking skulls? That's the difference between Moscow and Kiev.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I think also he made the point, and I think he's right. I don't want to give away everything because I want people to watch the show.
Mm-hmm.
But Zelensky was smart in that he kind of let them blow off some steam. What happens next, I think, is going to be very important, because if he does start to abuse the powers of the anti-corruption kind of prosecutor general, the Americans won't care, because Trump runs a kleptocracy. So
Right.
Trump's not going to care. And we are pulling away from Europe. But the Europeans are going to care.
Yeah.
And so I don't think this is a slide into autocracy for Zelensky, but I do want to see what happens next. I don't think it was the smartest thing to do, to push this through now,
Right.
and do it in the manner in which he did it. So I am critical of Zelensky there.
Right.
I know a lot of my friends and colleagues who I've spoken to about it are also very angry at Zelensky.
What was the reasoning that they gave for doing it and doing it now at all? What was their point that they made? Because I haven't heard that at all. I've heard the pushback to it. I've heard the existence of it, but I haven't been able to figure out like their argument for why doing this now, why it has value. I mean, in a lot of ways, the anti-corruption, it's like the Office of the Inspector General about other stuff would be under the purview of the DOJ in the United States to some degree, because they would be the ones that would carry it out. So structurally, that's how things operate here. We obviously have a problem with Pam Bondi and Bill Barr when that happens, because you pick and choose your battles, and they're certainly looking the other way when Trump is going. So I think that corruption is an issue for us in that same thing. But that's how the structure works here most of the time.
Yeah.
So what was their argument, if any?
Well, look, I mean, Zelensky rose to power on a platform of he had a couple of things that were key to his rise to the presidency and him winning the vote over Poroshenko. One was détente with Moscow in the war in the East. He quickly learned that Putin had no interest in that, and I have that direct from the U.S. ambassador at the time, who was working with Zelensky. He distinctly told me Zelensky came to office. He wanted to get Putin on side, but within a matter of weeks, if not months, months if not weeks, he realized Putin doesn't want to finish this. He doesn't want to finish this peacefully. So he ran on that. He couldn't complete that, but that was Putin's fault. The other major thing that he ran on was anti-corruption. And he has been working on that. He has been very outspoken in anti-corruption. And the reason why he says he absorbed the two other anti-corruption organs into the single central government prosecutor's office was to consolidate, to focus the power of anti-corruption efforts. His critics say he's consolidating power so that he can go after his political enemies, some of whom have been pretty outspoken in some of the decisions he's been making. So, there's two sides to this, and well, there's more than two sides, but there's two primary sides to this, and we really are going to have to wait and see what Zelensky does with his new foreign power and his cabinet and his his government, Zelensky government. What it does with the power it now controls and has centralized will determine whether or not you're going to have in 6 months, more kids on the street, because they're not going to put up with it. They will not put up with it. Well,
again, okay, I agree with that. I mean, I guess the thing that strikes me about it is that what they're really protesting against is the history of corruption, and they're worried that it will come back, which is a completely reasonable thing. It's something that Zelensky and those around him could kind of answer fairly easily by going, we're putting him under this roof because our system should just work. We shouldn't have to live like, we should have to bifurcate our entire government and have one hand not know what the other is doing because the Russians used to sock puppet us and we couldn't run our own business. We can now, and we should going forward, and we're a real democracy. So that message alone. And then to quell anybody's worries, what you would do is we're inviting the Europeans in to help us with this. Because if they're worried about Trump and his partners, whatever, invite the Europeans in to help us, root out corruption in certain areas that may have to do with interaction with their countries because of, stuff. It doesn't just go through Ukraine. All the corruption doesn't just stay in the building. It's like that's how it spreads. So there are ways. I mean, if it doesn't turn into a corrupt situation, and again, this could take years to blossom into something before somebody corrupts it and becomes a bad thing, which is the understandable thing too. They may not even be worried about Zelensky and his people doing it. It's like, hey, dumbass, somebody's going to come along if we have a backlash or something, and we're going to be left with this system that they're going to take advantage of. There's a reason we had to separate it. But there are also ways that you can put governors on that to protect yourself going forward, right? And your deals with Europe and that kind of stuff might be predicated, for example, on a certain, certain limits on any kind of, just general corruption or whatever. Like they have to meet certain points if they're going to sell arms back and forth or trade back and forth with Europe, that the standard of Europe may even be higher than certainly Trump's White House, right? So that's what they're counting on as the governor for this situation. Germany notwithstanding, that seems like that could possibly work. But again, it's more about like if in 6 to 8 months it isn't corrupt and they feel like they're going after some people, like if he does some high profile arrests or purges, and it actually works, and it's not necessarily somebody that's just his political enemy, then it could quell fairly quickly or whatever, in theory. And again, I'm not trusting in this that's how it works, but like it doesn't. It'd be one thing if they were protesting because he was caught being, compromised doing this stuff. It's the concern, and that I get, right? Where for the same reason here, even before Trump started doing some of the shit that we knew he was going to do, people started protesting in the streets, and we'll continue to do so. The entirety of his presidency or his life, whichever ends first. So, one of the other things I want to bring up, and we will. It's sort of a wait and see situation.
Before we
go ahead.
Yeah, before we move on from that, though, there is a concern because there has been a history in Ukraine of when power gets centralized, it gets abused. So there are some voices here in Ukraine that say, despite the possibility for dysfunction, it is better to separate powers so that no one entity, has too much power, because then it can oftentimes get corrupted. Again, I agree with I see your point. I have heard Ukrainians expressing the exact same perspective, putting forward that exact same perspective. We'll have to see. But one of the things that definitely did happen and has happened in this instance is the way this bill was forced through the RADA was extremely unusual. It normally it takes months of debate. You take it back, you rework it a little bit, you debate, you vote, you do this, you do that, you change things. This thing was just shit through a goose. And that's why a lot of people were like, "Hey, whoa, couldn't we have a public discourse about this? You basically put this through Parliament in the space of a day, which is never done. And it then goes to the president's office on the same day, and he gets signed into law." That's why I think a lot of people were very angry, and they took to the streets. But again, I reiterate to those who are saying, like the Charlie Kirks of the world and the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world, who are saying, "See, the Ukrainians are sick of this Zelensky dictator, and they are taking to the streets to overthrow him," show an incredible lack of understanding of what's happening here, and are, of course, purposefully using this for their own.
But they don't need any depth. They can just use it to smear.
Exactly. You just show the picture. Picture. The immediate visceral response is unrest on the streets of Kiev. Oh, goodness gracious me! But again, I can't stress enough. If that was Moscow, heads would be, there would be blood in the streets. This is a democracy. People were given the freedom of assembly, and they used it. That doesn't happen in Russia. So that's my response to Marjorie Taylor Greene and Charlie Kirk. Go fuck yourselves.
And on that note,
sorry, I had to say that.
It brings us to Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard puts out this infographic that allegedly shows that Obama created Russia. And it's lazy and stupid, and it's not going anywhere, and it's completely ignorant and ridiculous. And there is nothing in it. And even in the stuff she's released to kind of push back on stuff, it just makes her look dumber and dumber. It's very odd that they think this is something. But I got to say, it has more to do with like covering the Epstein stuff and throwing red meat to the base. Or as Marjorie Taylor Greene called it, chunks of red meat to the base. They want the full steak dinner, which is Epstein. But in this particular instance, like this is her evidence, by the way, is this infographic that it's just so lazy and lame. And then the like even the fact that it has deep state leaks in it, which is just ridiculous. She's the DNI. If you know who leaked something, then say so, right? Right? If you know it's the deep state, if you know it's anybody, say who they are. In theory, I guess. So how do you know it's the deep state and it wasn't Trump himself at that point? You weren't in his cabinet then, right? That's the problem, obviously, with this. And again, you can't leak a lie. So if they're leaking this stuff, it's true. And
cloud cuckoo land. It's absolutely cloud cuckoo land. And it denies the very real fact that we know that the Russians interfered in our election in 2016. Right. This is beyond dispute. So, the Russia hoax thing, that meme always pisses me off. Because it's again so dismissive of something that was so very, very serious. The Russians are in our body politic.
Yeah,
we've talked about this. Almost every week we talk about this. You and I, Hal. They are inside our country. They are manipulating our body politic. They are spreading disinformation. They are sowing discord. They're agents of chaos. So when they talk about, how everybody has taken to this thing about Epstein being an agent of a foreign,
right? Mossad specifically, they're using it like he's the
punt for
Israel right now, right?
Yeah, they say it's Mossad. It could very well, be GRU as well. And by the way, if the GRU wasn't involved in the Epstein, situation, whatever you want to call it. They sure as hell are now.
Mm-hmm.
Their little bots are all over our
Yeah.
all of our social media. If they weren't beforehand, because you got to understand also another thing about, and this is one of these things that I've learned from 30 years of being an international journalist, of kind of going to war zones and kind of rubbing shoulders occasionally with guys that you don't have to ask, you just know they're in the business. Whether American or whatever, it doesn't matter. The Mossad has a relationship with the CIA, but that also has a relationship with the GRU, because there was, ever since a movement began at the tail end of the Soviet Union called the Refusnik movement. It was Soviet Jews from all around, Russia, Ukraine, wherever. The government in the Kremlin decided, the Politburo basically decided, I guess, kind of as a show of good faith, and also because they had been, Israel had been pushing for these Soviet Jews to be able to come to Israel. There was a massive flood of Soviet Jews that moved into Israel in the, I think, considered often the late 70s into the late 80s, I think, is generally how people kind of see that time frame of the Refusniks. You can walk down the streets of Jerusalem and you hear Hebrew, but the other language you used to hear mostly was Brooklyn English. American Jews who had come to Israel for kibbutz or whatever. You hear Russian all the time now. You walk down the streets of Tel Aviv. You walk down. It's Russian everywhere. All of this gets mixed up.
So at the end of his life, Jeffrey Epstein, weeks before he died, or maybe a week before he died, he transferred about $1.1 to $1.5 billion worth of money in and around a bunch of accounts, probably to pay for his escape. But whether it worked or not, that's the thing. But the files don't show him using Israeli banks. The file doesn't show him using, that Ron Wyden is putting forward. It's not showing him using crypto, even at that point, which was still a possibility, to move stuff through, a Sam Bankman-Fried, another well-known Jew who happened to run a business around this, or any of that kind of shit where they could claim that people are owned by it. No. They specifically, just like Donald Trump, wasn't Swiss banks, wasn't the fucking Cayman Islands, wasn't Cyprus, right? It was fucking Russian. $1.1 billion through Russian banks that are now under sanction. And specifically, this is
so
from
obvious.
I know. This is from Ron Wyden. This is from finance.senate.gov. The file shows Epstein used multiple Russian banks, which are now under sanction, to process payments related to sex trafficking. End of fucking story. Like, a lot of the women and girls he targeted came from Russia, Belarus, Turkey, and Turkmenistan. These are the girls that they brought over that either he kept their passports or they didn't even have them to fucking start with. These are, like, girls born without a birth certificate that only travel on private planes, that aren't registered. You talk about, like, the fucking flight logs. These are women who would never end up even... They don't have a name for all practical purposes. Epstein called them white, meaning white trash. And so he would traffic these women from Eastern Europe and from West Palm Beach and all this kind of stuff, and they were white girls, meaning white, meaning cheap, poor white trash, or they were from, and again, the word slave comes from the Slavic countries.
Some little podunk village outside of Nizhny Novgorod or, Yakutsk.
Yes.
Our mutual dear friend Malcolm Nance tells the story of the first time he saw human trafficking, and it was in Italy, when a Russian oligarch pulled up his yacht and was in the process of offloading a young girl. the Carabinieri, apparently, according to Malcolm's story, stopped it. But it was obviously what was happening. And that is because this Russian mega yacht could pull up
Right.
to some port in Sicily or wherever it was. I forget exactly where in Italy. Malcolm tells the story. And no paperwork. No,
Right.
you don't go through customs. These guys, these are the ultra rich.
Right.
They don't go through customs.
Yeah.
They have their staff go through customs.
Yeah.
They might go to a passport control to get their passport stamped, but that's about the only interaction they have.
Yeah.
So, they with the mega yachts and with the jets and all, there's so many ways to circumvent
right.
Controls. Can I tell you a quick story?
Yes, please.
Okay. So this exemplifies what I'm talking about. It's not directly applicable, but I think it's worth telling. And it's also a good story. So in the Second Intifada, everybody is afraid that Israel is going to start another war with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. So I go to Beirut for CBS. And my job is to arrange an interview between Prime Minister Rafik Hariri, who was later assassinated. This was one of his last interviews, and Dan Rather. And Dan was down in Israel. And you can't fly from Israel to Beirut, obviously.
Right.
So Hariri agrees to the interview, and he says, in order to get around this thing, I'll send you my 727. I'm getting a new one anyhow soon. It'll fly to Amman, Jordan. You fly from Tel Aviv to Amman, which had reached a peace agreement. So they had they had borders that could be crossed. And then we'll fly you from Amman to Beirut, and nobody will ever know how and nobody's going to know how this happened. We're just going to make this happen.
Right.
This is, 20 years ago. So I feel safe in telling this story. And plus, Hariri's dead. And Dan, I don't think, would mind. But that's what we did. No passports were stamped.
Right.
No, nothing. We were met by a cavalcade, or I was part of the cavalcade from Hariri to the tarmac. Dan and his team gets out, gets in the cars, goes directly to a hotel for a quick shower, then goes to the presidential palace. This shit does happen. There are ways to get around crossing borders. And so, all of this human trafficking and this international transition of, this transactional thing between what is quickly becoming this kind of global oligarchy is 100% possible because I've seen it with my own eyes.
Well, and
good story though, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, indicative.
The interview's on my website. The interview's on my YouTube channel. Yeah, Hariri was an interesting guy. That was a hell of a trip. We also interviewed the deputy head of Hez. Anyway, good times. Glad they're in my past, though. I'm done with that shit. It's stressful. As soon as this war's over, I'm going to go dip my toes in Lake Huron and stay there. Hal? I don't hear you, bud. Hello, hello, hello. Up.
Check one. Check two.
Hey,
there we go. I don't know what the hell that was. That was fascinating.
Where
back
did I
to
lose
here.
you?
Yeah. Go back to me and you, and I think. Oh, and I'm frozen again. That's good.
Oh, there we go.
I look panicked. You're
I can see
fine.
again.
But so I'm the one who's. Hold on. I'll do this. Me and they, and then we'll do this business. That's fun. Apparently, I'm staring very hard at whatever I was looking at. Hey, look at me. It's super good. It happens. All right, it'll go to, and then Insta 360 to see if that guy wakes back up, and then this is my crap cam in case of emergency. Bust ass. See if this freezes again. If it's unfreezing, we'll see. 1280. Here, almost there. There we go.
Okay.
Well, at least I'm looking around. Hey, check. There we go. Okay, that was it. Just needed to barf itself up. It's fine. Today, it's been fun today. I gotta say, I guess they know that I'm not letting this shit go, so they're coming for me. It's the deep state.
Gremlins of the GRU. It's the deep
That's right.
state. It's the GRU.
That's right. All my screens shuffled, which was fun. Like all the things that I have on my screens, they just moved to a different screen all of a sudden. That was really what was going on during that. Okay, so we were at.
So where were we?
Where we were kind of at the idea that Tulsi Gabbard creating this BS story.
Yes.
Which, by the way, was continued by the Trump administration the entire time. So they carried the weight of the Russia hoax idea is her theory. And again, what really happened, here's what happened. So it was clear that the Russians had tried to hack into our election, but they didn't really accomplish anything. They didn't, they weren't able to, they weren't able to change voter totals in any way, so in a way that would affect the election. But they definitely created Facebook groups and all kinds of shit all over the place and used that as leverage to pit both sides.
The DNC.
Yes, they hacked the DNC
and the RNC.
Right, they released the stuff from the DNC, and I think part of the question that Democrats need to ask is it's interesting, isn't it, that Russia hacked both but only released stuff from one? Why do you think they held on to all the stuff they got from the RNC? It could be that there's just nothing to see here, folks. Or it could be that they still have something over you. Because they knew they were going to attack another country and they needed as much leverage on you and a bunch of Republicans and your finances as possible. So that would be part of the conversation. So she's running this idea that somewhere between them putting out a statement that the Russians tried to hack the election and didn't change any votes, and they did do something. They did try to affect the they had bots and Macedonian bot farms and hacker farms and all kinds of shit. You could argue that they were also paying for the caravans that were heading up from South America. They were financing a lot of that shit to push that and so that Trump could use that as a wedge issue for himself. So they were definitely involved in all this. And the Obama administration, was dealing with, during the lead up to the election and around it, how to deal with the reality of this without looking like they were putting their thumb on the scale and saying Trump is a Russian asset. Right? That was Trump had leveraged the world into this whole it's fake news, and by attacking people beforehand, he made it look like anything he's accused of, he'll accuse you of first, so it looks like you're just calling him that out of sour grapes, right? He's trying to do it in the reverse with calling everybody a fraud now because he was found guilty of fraud. If you see how that works. So in the case of the 2016 election, it's just fucking stupid. Obviously the Russians interfered in the election. They were trying to. Obviously they tried to hack into it but failed. They weren't able to do anything to change the outcome, but they definitely wanted to and tried to. And then afterwards, what the Obama administration came up with was, well, since they weren't able to change enough votes to do this, this was an election won and lost on the merits, but they did try to interfere by messing around on social media, by planning fake stories, by posting, we will now know, I would argue, going back, that the tenant media isn't the first attempt by Russia to to pay right-wing influencers. Fuck, they may have even, we have no evidence of this, but it stinks to high heaven, been the ones that paid the Washington Free Beacon to not publicize the Steele dossier that led him to taking it and selling it to Hillary Clinton's campaign. And then eventually her lawyer taking it to the FBI because she didn't want to act on it because it was so gross. They were like, nah, we're going to win. We don't need to touch this stuff. This is nasty. And there's enough stuff against him without even cracking into this. And then one of her lawyers went, no, there's crimes here. This fucking matters. This guy could be president, and the Republicans are running this guy. The FBI needs to know. So he and Christopher Steele took it to the FBI, right? Okay. So it is very possible that they paid off a bunch of different people, and we won't know for a long time until there's a Warren Commission about this, after Trump is long gone. But Tulsi's idea is, well, they changed the messaging, that there was a secret meeting of Obama where he said, tell them they attacked when we knew they didn't. It's just garbage. It's not going anywhere. It is so fucking lame. And it's from Tulsi Gabbard, the woman who asked the victim's advocate for the Syrians that were gassed. She says, how do you know it was Bashar al-Assad that bombed you in an airstrike and not ISIS? Because ISIS doesn't have any fucking planes, you twit. That's how they know. That, again, and if it's anybody but Assad, it's the fucking Russians.
Right. So, and she has openly said that one of the primary sources for her information feed was RT. RT is an organ of the GRU.
Yeah, Russia Today.
Of the Kremlin. Russia Today, RT. It beggars belief. It absolutely beggars belief, because we know that, I mean, all the things that you mentioned that they did to interfere with the election are 100% true. But I'll add to that. I'll see you in Rays. We know that they had operatives who were funneling money to the GOP through certain,
I will get one of these eventually,
conservative organizations, whether it was the NRA with Maria Butina, or was that Anna Chapman? I always get my Russian femme fatales mixed up. We know that they were inside the prayer.
That's the girl who snuck into Mar-a-Lago as a Rothschild, which again,
that's right. Yeah.
To all the fucking maggots who are like, the Rothschilds are behind all of it, the Jewish conspiracy and blah, like, hey, all you have to do to sneak into Mar-a-Lago is pretend to be a Rothschild and Trump will let you in. Holy shit. She didn't even have. She had fake ID. Like she rolled up in a rented $70,000 car, and they're like, she must be a Rothschild. She took pictures with fucking Trump and Lindsey Graham. She went golfing with these motherfuckers, and it wasn't even her name. Her boyfriend was like murdered, I think, in fucking Canada after this happened because like he was part of her cover, and like Jesus. And
I mean,
wonder if
the deputy station chief in New York has been arrested because he was taking bribes from the Russians.
Yes,
The deputy secretary, station chief for it was the FBI. I want to say one of the guys that's like supposed to be protecting us from Russian spies. But the problem is you get too cozy to some of these guys in your pursuit of them that they then end up corrupting you.
Yeah.
And look, the fact that Tulsi Gabbard is so fucking stupid that she can't recognize that Russia is actually conducting a form of hybrid information war against the United States. And this contributes to their efforts. She is giving support to the enemy, Moscow.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Right. So in her naming of people that are in on it, apparently Marco Rubio is in on it because he didn't have a secret meeting with Obama, but he came to the same fucking conclusion they did. That's why this is such a nothing burger. This is so fucking lazy. And all of it is to hide from the fact that Epstein was Trump's fucking wingman for years. Both of them partied together with underage girls and of-age girls and fucking whoever else, international criminals, God knows what else. And they flew on each other's planes back and forth. And in the last week of his life, Epstein shuffled his money around through Russian fucking banks. And here comes Tulsi fucking Gabbard tap dancing this shit away. Senator Marco Rubio sharply rebuked Trump in the Florida Republican said in 2018, this is when he was a senator, the intelligence community's assessment of 2016 is accurate. It is 100% accurate. The Russians interfered in our elections. I think it's not a good moment for the administration, obviously. Hopefully something like that never happens again. And at that time, by the way, I think Marco Rubio meant Donald Trump should never be allowed to run for office again. For real. But now he either has convinced himself he's the adult in the room, or he thinks he's going to steal away some slice of MAGA and the old guard Republican and make himself, possibly, the first Hispanic president, in our history. Like that's where he's going. I think that's, or a bigger spot in whatever the next administration is, whatever the fuck that is. Or who knows. But 7 years later, just keeps saying, high. Yeah. Well, that it is. It absolutely is. But it's, and again, I don't know what the contract situation is post presidency when you're the Secretary of State. I mean, it's great worldwide if you're liked. The problem is that if you're the Secretary of State for Donald Trump, you're going to be persona non grata in most of the country of the world after you lose that fucking job because everybody's going to, tarnish you with his bullshit behavior.
Yeah. And when the, I think, almost inevitable crash and burn that will be this administration, that'll be an albatross around his neck. So
yep.
It's, look, who is it that says, is it Rick Wilson who says everything that Trump touches dies?
Yeah.
He is toxic. Yeah, he has been for a very, very long time. So you're right. We're going to have to do an autopsy after all of this is said and done and really get to the bottom of what the Russians have been up to. They're not going to stop. That's the other thing. They are making us increasingly defenseless. I mean, Hegseth has already done the espionage unit that specializes in Russia has been dismantled
right.
in the DoD.
Well, or went dark, which is really more than likely what happened.
Yeah, maybe that's possible too. But regardless, it's these idiots in this MAGA world that thinks they can kind of be partnered or buddy with the Russians, or that there's common cause with the Russians because white Christian nationalism. Mm-hmm. They don't understand Russia. The Russians hate us. Mm-hmm. Hate us. They have been fed a steady diet of anti-Americanism, and really even further back than that, anti-British.
Yeah.
And they see the Anglo Alliance is their primary adversary on the world, and they're doing something about it.
Right.
And we are just sitting there blithely, just not understanding that there isn't common ground between, Putin's Z movement, mm-hmm. His Z movement or whatever, right. and MAGA. It's only cosmetic.
Right.
This Christian white nationalism thing. They hate, like, especially, by the way, not to forget, they really hate anything that isn't Russian Orthodox religion. And while actually religion mm-hmm. is dying in Russia, what fervent religious sects still exist within Russia, which do have close ties to Putin's Kremlin, look at things like Protestantism or baptism or even Catholicism as Satanistic. I mean, they are militantly Russian.
So we've seen our the lovely woman over at Russian Media Monitor has been going through the videos
Julia.
as per usual. Huh? Pardon?
Julia. Yeah.
Yeah, Julia. Yeah, and at one point. There's this whole thing. Here it is. At the same time, delirium goes well. Hold on, let me scroll this up. What he's saying right here. He goes, the Russians are like our own citizens are caught up in this delirium that the war has to be won and whatever. Like they're all over the map with this shit. But he goes that at the same time, delirium goes well with Satanism, right? And which is just like that's the sales thing. There's the West is satanic. The fucking like Zelensky's satanic. It's just so fucking stupid. Even though they love Trump and he was friends with Epstein, who was a pedophile, and Roy Cohn, who was a pedophile, they're fine with that shit, right? And the Russians themselves are like trafficking human beings all the time. But tell me all about Satanism. Okay, so what in this video, Margaret Simonian. While this dude looks on, I don't know who the fuck this guy is, but he's like the weirdest kind of like, he looks like he's waiting to be sketched for an old 1950s Disney cartoon as a bystander in Lady and the Tramp. But she goes through and, like she's like, okay, how are they going to do this? He's like talking about Spider-Man. She goes, what will happen? What does it mean these 50 days? And she goes through these 3 versions of it. One, it's over quickly and an agreement happens. She's like, I don't see that happening. Reason number 2 is your favorite, which to what's his ass here. And in that, she cites all this like, Russian stuff, from history, the whole West is up in arms against, blah, blah, blah. Encounters, I don't think there's a godless now, Antichrist. Okay. They just laugh at it. And then they go to the second issue is what you want. She's still in the first option or whatever. And he goes, there you go. Yeah, you're dragging me into option number 2. She goes, where is it? Option number 2, you'll like. And he's basically like the fucking Satan missile and nukes, right? Like what I want is I want to nuke them. That's what he goes to. Like fucking Simonian is going, not my favorite. I don't feel like that's a good answer to this, but I know it's your favorite outcome, right? And by the way, this is America apparently are total sissies, and we are not committed to war. So if we blow up, if they nuke one of our airports, we'll cower because we don't want to get dragged into something. That's her feeling on this. It's so fucking weird. She goes, our airport's being attacked and so on because we understand the price of victory. We're fine with it, right? And then I don't think it will get to a nuclear war. I think we have this threat because the entire collective West is utterly brazen. We're also brazen sissies. I don't know what the fuck that means. I mean, there's so all of them. And then if their plan comes true, I'm sure it's not, it will be the most succulent bite, the tastiest morsel, which is they want to drag they want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. They want to drag us into a nuclear war. want to I guess the way we once cut off Poland, Finland, and cars back in the 90s, we cut 14 of the 15 of ourselves, preferably the head. Like, we need to regrow the Russian state is effectively what they go to. But she's like, they're not, it's fucking hard to figure like what the fuck she's talking about half the time. But the last one is the West wants the war to go on forever, to bleed them dry. So on the one hand, like they can't get their talking points straight. Like on the one hand, the fucking other dude's like, we should just nuke everybody, because they and it might be leading up to this. It might be the point, like they want this to drag on forever, and it's only going to stop if we nuke them. Right? We got to nuke fucking New York, and that'll be that. And these motherfuckers will know we're serious. Now, it's, of course, ridiculous. The fail-safes that still exist from the USSR on our systems as well. So if you launch something, there's a fucking counter-strike coming from everywhere. It still exists. It's still there.
Still mad.
Yeah, it's still mutual assured destruction, no matter... Yeah. So, no, it's not going to happen. And as much as Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene want to scare everybody with it, we can't protect Ukraine. We might get nuked. Like, shut the fuck up. No.
If you haven't watched last week's episode with Elvira Berry, who's a Russian immigrant, she lives in Los Angeles now, and she writes books about like historical fiction set in like Russia's empire. But she also has her own channel where she kind of dissects Russian society for an English-speaking audience. She and I go into this in great depth. These guys are stuck. They all know they're screwed. They all know they're screwed. And they can't stop the war because they're afraid of the soldiers that will be coming back.
Right.
And it would be a defeat. It would be a defeat, and it would be awful for them. You'd have armed men traumatized by war, returning with weapons oftentimes, or being able to get access to weapons, and they're going to have no jobs because the country is on a war economy footing, and it's going to be suffering under sanctions. And if these 50-day things, I still don't understand the whole 50-day. We're going to tariff you, or we're going to sanction you when it's already a country that is sanctioned, and it's just whatever. But these guys know, and this is what Elvira and I spoke about, was that the ruling elite, the ruling class in Russia, know that their window is closing, and they're grabbing everything that isn't nailed down. And some of them can evacuate; they can get out of the country. When the dust settles, so they're grabbing as much as they possibly can so they can get the hell out of there. But people like Simonian and Sobolyev and Putin's cabinet and the high-ranking generals, they can't go anywhere. Right, they're screwed. Yeah, and they are all
they're
of
dead
them
enders at this point,
running around. They really are. They're running around like chickens with their heads cut off because they don't know a way out of this predicament.
Well, and in this
that
one,
means the war's going to keep going.
Yes,
and it will be them.
This is.
There's supposed to be peace talks happening right now in Istanbul. I haven't heard any. I don't think we're going to hear anything from them.
Nope.
Because I don't think Russia wants to stop the war.
No, of course not.
Russia's elite can't stop the war.
This is Tulsi Gabbard's favorite channel, probably her favorite show. Right now, Europeans, first and foremost Germans, went from merely talking about reviving their military-industrial complex. Europe is getting ready for war. Just like the last century, we should strike now. We should destroy them right away. Out of the mouth of Maria Zakharova, since she is an official representative, we consider manufacturing facilities in these countries who deliver munitions for strikes targeting our territory, to be legitimate targets for our weapons to strike them. So if anybody who sells weapons, this is what he's basically saying, anybody who sells weapons to Ukraine, we should bomb them. Then, until now is mainly discussed, the way we're discussing it now is an official position of the country. I think the Germans should give it some thought. Then we start thinking only we carry out a strike. Andrei Anatolievich Sidorov is worried, not even close. No one will dare say not at all. Because of non-nuclear strikes, will the Russians deliver more weapons? Yes, this is a real option. that we will fight NATO with our
Russian.
general purpose forces. Here I'm ready to agree with you that tactical nuclear weapons will be used. Simonian, without a doubt. If Americans strike the Kaliningrad region, okay, we're not striking the fucking Kaliningrad region. Like, if the Ukrainians do, you're still not going to be able to blame us for it, or the Europeans, or anybody else. You picked a fight with them. Somebody handed them a fucking rock, and they hit you in the forehead with it. It's not the rock's fault, and it's not the person who handed them the rock. They threw it. You started the fight. Shut the fuck up. But here you go. Here you go. If Americans strike the Kaliningrad region, 2 Poseidon nuclear armed torpedoes, and he's rubbing his hands, and there will be a strait named after Comrade Stalin. By the way, not after Vladimir Putin. After Comrade Stalin. The idea, and again, I build evidence every goddamn day for what I said about the 91 fall was a rope-a-dope, and that they were like, we got to lay back. We're never going to be able to fight on their own field, so we're going to pretend to be buddies. Hey, man, we'll use our best weapon, which is compromat. We'll wrap these fuckers up. We'll keep our nukes, and they'll let us because they're assholes. And then by the time they wake up to the fact that they've been had, it will be too late. We will have our guy in their White House. That was it. It was all bullshit. It's always been bullshit.
This bluster that they're using right now, we're going to hit it with our magic Oreshnik. We have nukes. We could do a tactical nuke. We could do this. These guys can't fight Ukrainians.
Right.
They're losing to Ukrainians.
Right.
What happens if they do something as stupid as what these idiots are threatening?
Oh, yeah.
It's bluster. It's bluster, because if they ever did any of this, there would be Western European tanks or American tanks or whatever on Red Square.
There'd be fucking Chinese tanks slicing the country in half. China would go,
too. Yeah, the Chinese.
China. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. If they launch a nuclear strike, use a tactical nuclear weapon on any, it'd be the last thing they do. And the Chinese would go, oh, okay, well, we can't side with them anymore because we want to do business with the rest of the world at some point, and these fuckers are nuts. So we're going to take back the land that we lost. We've already renamed it after back to its Chinese name on our maps, anyways. So we've already signaled we're going to do it. So but this is the time for strikes, says Solovyev. Now, they did not take our ethnic strikes into account, and they're convinced that we won't do it. Supposedly, India and China have told us, or else what? That's the thing. Supposedly, India and China said, don't use nuclear weapons, or else. Or else what? Everything goes, motherfucker. Your entire oil industry, everything that you buy from them, that's over. The foodstuffs you rely on, the consumer goods you rely on, the trucks, the trucking parts, the fucking chips that you're stealing and you're getting black market through stuff, the drones that you have, the DJIs that you're buying from China, gone. That's what, you dumb motherfucker. What else what? You do what? What you going to what? You're going to, no, they're wrong about this. They're wrong about this. Did they say this or not? Of course not. Can you even imagine it? The respect for the leader of the People's Republic of China is calling the president of Russian Foundation, Vladimir, God forbid you use them. It says God forbid you use them. Even this tone is impossible in conversation between leaders of the countries. This tone alone is impossible. I don't know what he means by impossible. Like it won't work, or it's not going to convince him, or some shit. They're profoundly wrong and mistaken. Like, dude, they're not mistaken. They don't have to sell you shit. They don't have to buy shit from you. There's already a glut of oil. The Chinese economy is fucking collapsing, dum-dum. They don't even have that much stuff to buy and sell anymore as it is, much less put their fucking dick on the chopping block for Vladimir Putin if he nukes fucking Berlin. Like, get out of here.
Yeah, really got. If you haven't watched last week's episode, watch it. We talk about exactly this when we talk.
Yeah.
Elvira, of course, she grew up in Nizhny Novgorod, so not one of the major cities, not Moscow or St. Petersburg. So she kind of grew up poor. She grew up in the Soviet Union. She's a Gen Xer. And of course, she's still, anybody who's an immigrant will know that you don't just cut off ties normally, unless something extraordinary has happened. You don't just cut off ties with the nation of your birth. You still have friends and family and all the rest of it. So she describes talking to just average people or people who are kind of middle management kind of people. And they're all of them that she talks to, she says, they're all getting ready for the other shoe to drop. They know that they're fucked. They know that this period of time where they could participate in the world, where they could buy nice things, have a nice little summer cottage, and maybe take a vacation or two a year to Cyprus or whatever the fuck. All of that is over. It is done. And they all know it. And so she describes some really interesting interaction with people that she knows from her childhood and from, being a Russian immigrant. So Putin,
it was Putin lacks money for war. Russia authorizes plan to optimize budget by 2 trillion rubles. It's the same thing Trump is doing, like move the debt ceiling so that you can add the expenditures. It's the same
and
shit.
Most of that is buying soldiers. Most of that is going to soldiers' salaries. And when that dries up and soldiers stop getting paid, he's going to have another problem. It's the whole thing. This idea that Russia is an inevitability, that it's this superpower beast that will always... No, man, they're in trouble. They're in big trouble.
Yeah.
And the narrative that, it's only a matter of time before they're going to beat the Ukrainians. Fuck off. They're maybe getting few kilometers a day. For what? How many guys are they losing? How much money are they burning?
Over 1 million. Over 1 million casualties. Like
Russian banks will fall. Yeah, over 1 million casualties.
And these, by the way,
whoever wrote this,
remember the and I'll let you go. And I appreciate you being here, Phil. And we're so again, I did not ask you how you are. I'm just glad you're here. That's enough. I get it.
There you go.
But I would like to say that
we've had a couple of quiet nights.
Yeah, in 91 and in 1991 when things were shifting, we did find out a lot of stuff from Russia. Their UFO files, some of their KGB files got in the wind, some of their nuclear stuff got in the wind because nobody was guarding the henhouse. They still are shit at security, even in amongst their country.
More than that, they opened it up. They opened
well, and again, I will trust the stuff that they open up way later because that could be selective and it could be manipulated and all kinds of stuff like that. That's how you do it. You're like, yeah, absolutely. Take a look. There's nothing in there. Like, okay, all you do is a bunch of press releases in there that you want me to read out loud. That's how you do it. But in this particular instance, when these banks go, this is for real. Like, you don't recover from this kind of shit. Yeah?
This is going to be worse than 91.
It's going to be worse than Kodak. 91. That'd be awesome. Yeah, it's going to be worse than 91.
Not least of which, also one last quick point, because also we're not going to get fooled again. Right. This time, this collapse, there was goodwill in 91. Remember?
Yes.
At the end of the Cold War.
That's right.
We wanted to help these guys. We gave them Pizza Hut.
Yep.
With Gorbachev. I'm joking about that. We did a lot of stuff for them in 91. There was a lot of goodwill for a long time. When this collapse happens, we're going to be very judicious in how we approach the Russians after they lose this war.
Right.
And they're in for a lot of trouble.
And here's what I would say about, like, when the country falls, you could argue that the KGB is like, oh shit, stuff's going to hit the fan, start shredding things and start putting stuff in there that will distract them and send them in another direction. Type some shit up, throw it in the file, and they'll chase this forever, like a dog with a bone. But when it comes to the banks and the records of stuff, when a Russian bank falls like this and the whole country collapses and people start rifling through what information is still there or information starts coming out, and we know that Jeffrey Epstein funneled $1.1 billion the week of his death while Donald Trump was president through Russian banks, what do you think's going to happen when that shit starts coming to the surface? Yeah. Yep. I'm just saying. It's not going to be pretty. So unlike Philip Bitner's beard.
Buckle up.
So thank you so much, sir.
Look forward to this Sunday's episode of On the Edge with the one and only, the great Luke Harding from the Guardian newspaper, one of the best Western journalists or English in the English-speaking world when it comes to this region, not just for this war, but for decades of work at the Guardian. Good conversation.
Fantastic.
Nice of him to give us the time.
Right. I'm going to let's see. Is this in a separate? Oh, you have a separate thing for the On the Edge thingamadodger. Hold on one second. There you go. So yeah, I'm going to grab. This is the for subscribing.
And if you haven't watched oh yeah, please subscribe. Absolutely.
Yeah. I just posted On the Edge -ZY20L or whatever that's in your your @ on there, so people can subscribe there. Let's see, is there a link? Let's see. Yeah, I use
the On the Edge channel just as kind of a backup, but the Philip Bitner one is the one that really has the audience we're trying to grow.
Okay, great. Good to know. All right, so I'll share that one as well, because it does not hurt. You got 24,000 subscribers. That's nothing to sneeze at. It's great stuff.
I do.
So take care of yourself.
Got to keep Ukraine on people's minds.
Yes, I agree. One second. I want to make sure. Where's my Discord pop up?
It's going to be a good episode this week. Last week was a cracker. I didn't agree with everything she said. We kind of had a difference of opinion.
Sure.
But it was good to exchange ideas with a she's a Russian who immigrated to America. I'm an American who immigrated to Moscow and then subsequently the Russian, former Russian Empire. So we kind of juxtapose one another.
Right, right. Awesome. Well, take care of yourself and take care of somebody else, and I will see you on Saturday, my friend. Be well.
Yes,
Get some rest. Okay.
Right.
Cheers. Then bye. There
Cheers.
it goes. And then I'm gonna bring this up if I may. Let's see, where are we? Where's our? There we go. Clip this out, and then I don't know why my at this point I'm not questioning anything. Obviously, it's time for a hard restart, kids. That's just how life is. Where are you, you weirdo? Maybe it's just hidden behind here. It shouldn't be. All right, that's gonna go to here. Where are you? Show windows. Where is it? Oh, the other windows. All right. Weird. Okay. For some reason, I can't bring up the staff chat right now because that's just fun, which is hilarious. All right. We're opening. There we go. It's opening back almost. There we go. View, window, center. There we go. Where are we? New window? Maybe do I do a new window? Fill, center, move and resize. Center. I don't know where it went. It just lost its little window. It's just being weird. Okay, I'm going to quit it and see if I can restart it again. That'll be weird. Sorry about that. I can't see the staff chat right now, so I'll let you guys go, and I'll see you this afternoon. So much good stuff, especially as people try to turd polish on behalf of Trump. And I will be doing this afternoon Tulsi Gabbard's video explaining the whole controversy as she sees it. And because I feel like when you're gonna, stomp a mud hole in something and march it dry, it's better to go directly to the source. So especially, let's see, her video on this whole Obama administration nonsense, the Russia hoax stuff that she's been posting. So she posted one 4 days ago, 3 days ago, and yesterday. So this is a concerted effort. Need a new needle on a record player? Very possible. Yeah, for all the record scratching that's going. All right, I will let you guys go, and I'll try and fix whatever the frick is going on with my stuff. It's making me all flickery. Thank you, chat room. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your support. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. If you're on Substack, think about subscribing, and you can always share. You can restack me there. That's your idea of a good time. And I will see you guys this afternoon. Oh boy. Oh boy.